What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Week 7 Late Round Fantasy Football Show, sponsored by DraftKings. We've got a fun one on tap. Lots of injuries that we have to navigate, some that are trying to bring us down, but who can be brought down after last night's Unk Bowl? So JJ will be talking about that. We'll be talking about some bold predictions. We've got 2 Monday Night Football games, which JJ is so excited about. So we'll see which one makes his quad box. All that and more next on the Late Round Fantasy Football Show, sponsored by DraftKings. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. JJ, how are you?
Good. Faced Jamar Chase in a couple of leagues. That wasn't fun, but from an analysis standpoint, I feel good about last night's game. Had, Rodgers, Flacco, and Noah Fant on the sleeper show. So I was glad to see all 3 of them come through.
Yeah, I also saw that you had anytime touchdown with Noah Fant.
Yeah, I had a plus 425 Noah Fant anytime touchdown last night, which was pretty sweet to hit.
I mean, the move was to just put all the tight ends on there.
Apparently.
We should have known with Arthur Smith.
By the way, shout out Michael Florio of NFL Network, who went on TV, and one of his bold takes was that all 3 Steelers tight ends were going to score a touchdown in that game, which I think he then looked up, and it's only happened one other time in NFL history, and he called it. The odds of that happening are astronomically small. So I got to give him props. Great dude too. So I got to, give my friend some love.
All right. We have some bold predictions ourselves to talk about later. We're going to get more into this Thursday night football game. We do want to say this is an interactive show. So listen, get in here, give us your takes, give us your comments. Let us know your thoughts. If you're listening to this while doing your honey-do list on a Saturday morning, then, just be like, hey, this is, you can respond later. You have something to say, respond later, either on Shopify or go to YouTube.
Spotify, that is.
That's what I said.
Yeah, right.
That's what I meant. Okay. And again, shout out to DraftKings. You can use that QR code in the lower right corner, get their Week 7 deposit bonus offer there. And JJ, are you ready to start this week? Because we have plenty to talk about. And for some people, it's like do or die week.
Yeah, let's do it.
In fact, I'm already there's already something I need to put on the news list. So I'll do that after we get to it.
Today's fantasy news.
Okay, we're gonna start with the Unk Bowl, but I forgot to put the Rashee Rice stuff on here. So that's a big,
of course,
big miss. So we are not cooked with rice. Let's talk about the Unk Bowl though. Last night, Thursday night football game, tons of points. I mean, what were your thoughts in general?
Yeah, okay.
You're a Steelers fan too.
Yeah. I mean, fan in quotes. It's not really the same as it used to be. My reaction to this game is to chill a little bit. I've come to the realization that my reaction to any big, monster, insane outing by a player or an offense or anything, my reaction is generally frustration, because I wish that, people wouldn't get so extreme with their takes after something like that happens. But I also recognize that that's the fun of this. And that's why, people enjoy just going to the extreme and saying, I mean, in my mentions right now, you guys, I have people saying that Joe Flacco is better than Joe Burrow, legitimately in my mentions right now.
Is Joe Burrow a system quarterback?
Right. So I want to just talk about a few things, because I think that last night was really interesting, and there's a lot of data that sort of backs up why I think it's so interesting. First off, if you guys remember a couple weeks ago, I called Jamar Chase a sell. That was with Jake Browning. And then I talked to the mailbag last week saying that I was probably still below consensus because consensus had him as a top 8 overall player. And I went back and looked. I think I had him at 12th overall. So I was technically lower than consensus. That was the wrong take. he should have been in the top 8 based on what we saw last night. With that being said, I don't think that Jamar Chase is, I talked to people on Discord about this today. I don't think that he's like in the Puka Nacua level right now, assuming that Nacua is healthy. Obviously, he's not playing this weekend, but if you were to trade straight up one for the other, that would happen after this week anyways. Then Nacua has the bye, and then I would rather have Puka over Jamar Chase rest of season. I think I'd rather have Jackson Smith and Jigba over Jamar Chase rest of season, but probably in the same tier. And then maybe you could throw like an Amon-Ra after that, or like close to that, whatever. So it was a really, really good outing for Jamar Chase and his rest of season outlook. And I also, when I do rest of season stuff, like the market sentiment matters too, because you want good value for that player, right? The thing that I'll say though, is that like, I don't think that this is a situation where we can just automatically say like Joe Burrow or Joe Flacco is better than Joe Burrow for Jamar Chase and all this kind of stuff. Jamar Chase had a 51% target share last night, which is just not sustainable whatsoever. And last night's game, it reminds me a little bit of what we saw Thursday night, the last 2 weeks, where San Francisco plays the Rams and the Rams defense plays absolutely atrocious against the 49ers. Last week, the Eagles, they were down Jalen Carter, but they played horrifically against the Giants. And then the Steelers, they're not adjusting at all to what they're doing with Jamar Chase. I mean, the defensive performance was a joke by Pittsburgh last night. And then, you look at the history of like Mike Tomlin on the road on Thursday night has only won 2 games. He's like 2-8 or 2-10, one of the two. Like there's a lot going on like from that perspective. And I also like the way that I approach the game is that in singular games, like stuff happens. I talked about this with Michael Penix after he had that crazy, awful game against Carolina. And everyone's just like, oh, Michael Penix is terrible. Like we don't want anything to do with Drake London. But in those instances, there are buy moments in fantasy football because the general idea and feeling about these players is so negative and so extreme that we can use that to our advantage. And that's what we did with Drake London. And that's what we've done with that Falcons passing attack. And obviously, that helped because Drake London dominated last week. So if you look at the numbers though, that's like the negative side, if you will, with like the Cincinnati offense is that like, I don't think we should expect what we saw on Thursday night every single week. And I think most rational people would agree with that. I think that where like there's some intrigue is what I did talk about on the mailbag last week is I think that we're seeing like a 95th percentile outcome kind of start to hit and come together for Flacco in this offense if this were to maintain. Because the big thing for me is that you can look at the numbers all day long. And I joked about that EPA per dropback thing with Jake Browning versus Joe Flacco, whenever they traded for Flacco. You can look at these numbers all day long and it'll say Joe Flacco did this in this environment. Jake Browning did this in this environment. Clearly, Cincinnati is a different environment than Cleveland because they have better pass catchers. So like EPA is not going to capture all of that stuff. The thing that is being captured though is like how Joe Flacco performs in a clean pocket and how he performs, under pressure. And he hasn't been that great under pressure. The thing is though, and this is what I was talking about on the mailbag episode, just to bring that up for the third time, is that Flacco to me versus a Jake Browning, the main difference is that he can be just a deliverer of the football and do things at the line of scrimmage that Jake Browning wouldn't be able to do. And so I don't think Flacco, like I think he played well. Like I think it's premature to say that he's just as good as Joe Burrow in this offense, or he's just, in the end, what happened last night is that Flacco did a brilliant job of getting the ball out quick. His time to throw was 2.44 seconds, which was the lowest of any game of his season. And that allowed the Steelers defensive line to not generate any pressure. The Steelers generated a pressure on 24.5% of Joe Flacco's dropbacks, which was the lowest of Flacco's season. The lowest pressure rate that he saw. And it was the lowest pressure rate that Pittsburgh generated. So there's this thing where like, if the Bengals continue to just run this offense where they're just throwing these really quick outs to Jamar Chase, and they're just getting a lot of yards after the catch. Like they should be doing that because the offensive line is a problem. But I do still fear that like defenses are going to be able to recognize what's going on and adjust better than how the Steelers adjusted. So my overall stance here is there's going to be some regression here just naturally. Jamar Chase is not going to maintain a 51% target share. Joe Flacco is probably not going to be this good. The nice part is, though, I talked about this on the 15 transaction show with Joe Flacco being an ad. His rest of season schedule is pretty good. Like, I think Flacco can be a good, like, streaming type that we're playing in good matchups, but then also If you're just hurting a quarterback, you can use them because the weapons are there. So that's my general thoughts. It was good to see Chase Brown get a little, like, I thought Chase Brown looked good, not just the line playing.
He did, except for that drop pass.
But the drop pass changed everything for him.
Yeah.
It was like after that drop pass, he realized what he needed to do, and he was bouncing off tackles. I mean, he played the best.
He looked good running the ball for sure.
Yeah, he had the best game of his season. And I think that when you have an honest passing attack like they had, again, they're not going to be able to just run that same exact offense. Jamar Chase is not going to see 23 targets more than likely again in a game, maybe even in his career, right? But when you are able to threaten the defense through the air like that, and they actually have to care and worry about T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, it's going to open up more running lanes. Like, this is what a few weeks ago, and I was just kind of waiting and, not saying too much about Chase Brown because I was really worried that like it was going to really go south. I don't think it's going to really, really go south. I still think he's just like an RB2 type, maybe even lower end. But like I had mentioned on the show how like their offensive line was playing so bad in terms of rushing yards, or his yards after contact per attempt. They weren't getting any push at all. And so Kitchen just left me, for the record. They weren't getting any push at all. And so like my thought process, and Jacob Gibbs had sent a tweet about this, like it was historically bad how bad the offensive line was playing. It was almost impossible for them to play as poorly as they were playing. And I think, I don't think Chase Brown is like an elite talent, but I think he has enough burst and ability to like I think he would have been probably a fine like player if Joe Burrow wouldn't have gotten hurt. And then
P. Ryan seems like kind of like a Zach Moss, like fly in the ointment sort.
But we still see Chase Brown. Like Chase Brown was still seeing inside the 5 snaps. And like Samaje Perine is playing the old Samaje Perine role, which is a third down, long down and distance type role, 2-minute role, and that sucks for Chase Brown's upside for sure. We would want those like cheap points here and there for sure. But I do think that Brown saved. Like I think last night you should feel better about him being able to like be a guy that you throw in your lineup as like an RB2, that you're not completely toast with Chase Brown anymore.
Yeah. Did you listen? You probably, your East Coast stats, you probably went to bed after the game, but we had the Flacco run option. He talked about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, but like, that wasn't the plan. He said it was too quick and he was just like, screw it. So like he hadn't done that since like his second season ever.
I gotta say, man, last night, I've been someone who's, again, I try to stay pretty level-headed with my football analysis in the way that I just view the game, because I think it's just more fun whenever you can just kind of like look at it more objectively, and I try to do that. And I've had people and friends from Pittsburgh, because I grew up there, every year for the last decade, just be like, fire Tomlin, fire Tomlin, fire Tomlin. Last night was one of the most pathetic performances of Mike Tomlin's career, like legitimately. And this is the first time that I've actually felt that there's substance to that, even though he'd get a job right away. Like I genuinely think that he's stuck in like 2000. Like he came out of halftime.
It's like Jeff Fisher vibes kind of.
Yeah. He came out of halftime and there was an interview with him where they said, what do you need to do? He said, limit turnovers and stop the run. You're facing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase has like 14 targets in the first half or something. And you're saying that what you have to do to come back in this game is stop the run? Are you insane? Like one of the worst answers / game plans I've ever heard in my life. The Steelers defensive line played like trash. The Steelers secondary played like trash. There was no adjusting. I mean, it was a quintessential. Mike Tomlin does this at least once every year. Last year was that Cleveland game against Jameis. And it's just tiring. They finally have an offense that's actually moving the ball decently well. And and the defense is just pathetic. And it's been pathetic all year. I mentioned on the sleeper show with Flacco that they've been a top 5 team for quarterbacks by adjusted points allowed. You saw why. I mean, the defense is horrendous. It's the most expensive defense in the league too. I mean, it's just a really, really bad situation right now.
Seeing you tweet through things, it kind of gives me joy because like, I know that you are a fantasy analyst, but I also know you're a Steelers fan.
Yeah.
And so when you're like, maybe give Jamar Chase or Jalen Ramsey some help, like when he's trying to cover Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm at my Steeler fandom is I want them to win, but I don't care that much if they lose. And maybe that makes me a bandwagon fan, but I did a lot throughout my life to,
Yeah.
go through the
I
ups
think
and
that's just
downs of different
healthy.
teams.
It's
Yeah,
healthy.
yeah. I genuinely don't care that if they win or lose, whatever. But I do want to see like rational, good football, right? And if I'm going to root for a team, that would be my team. But I just want to see like good game plans. Like, what are you doing? It's just it's the definition of insanity. Also, Jalen Warren, shout out Jalen Warren. The dude's a monster.
Yeah, that's what Tony said.
I tell
RB1
every week that we get on the Q&A for Patreon with the patrons. I feel like every week I say the same thing where I say Jalen Warren every week when I go back and watch games. He is the best Pittsburgh Steelers weapon, period. Like every week, he is the best player on the field. And I think we saw that last night.
The last thing I'll say just about Flacco, kind of what you're talking about, the EPA and the comparison to Cleveland. He was just glowing after the game, talking about how special that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were. Like talking about them just plucking balls out of the air. It's like I threw a couple passes, and usually like I expect my receivers to catch it kind of with their body, and they're just plucking out of the air with their hands.
That's what happens when you play with Jerry Jeudy,
Right. I know. But that's what I'm saying is that I do think he has a lot of confidence in his guys, which is good for your
It's good for fantasy. I would say, I mean, my overall take is that things are better for Cincinnati than I expected. And I saw the positive outcome, but I still think that this is even higher than what I generally, thought going into the Flacco trade.
All right, let's get to some news ahead of this week. Rashee Rice saving some Cook teams. So if you somehow did not know that Rashee Rice is coming back this week and he's on your team, get him in the starting lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here's my thing. I'm just putting yes, sir, as my reaction to Rashee Rice coming back. So he, I've seen some takes of like, people were being too optimistic about, Rashee Rice coming back and being a top 6, top 10 option in fantasy. Guys, the wide receiver, I said this on the mailbag, the wide receiver position is just rough right now. So I think if you've got Rashee Rice, you're throwing him in your lineup. This offense is cooking. It's a good matchup. I do have an interesting bold prediction though for later in the show that may or may not have to do with this offense. So I'll leave it at that. Put Rashee Rice in your lineup. It should be a good time.
Okay. Nakua Matata. It means, well, some worries. He's going to be out this week.
Yeah. I'm still expecting the Rams offense to move the ball relatively well. Jacksonville has been opportunistic. They turn the ball over, but that stops a drive. It doesn't necessarily like stop the from a play to play standpoint. That's like a high variance defense. They're not that great at getting the quarterback. They're below average in pressure rate. Devontae Adams is still obviously a stud. And so I think this could be a really big Devontae Adams game because we know that Matthew Stafford is no stranger to locking in on one dude and just giving him a crazy target share. So I love Devontae Adams this week. I still lean Tutu Atwell over Jordan Weddington as that other wideout just because I think there's more explosive play potential, but it's not really by much. I think it's more like back-to-back from like a rankings perspective. But yeah, that's how I'm generally viewing this. I think Stafford could be a streamer, but it's a London game and things are always weird when it's like a Thursday night game or a London game or something like that.
Lang and Egbuka, we had a little bit of hope today when they said that Egbuka was working on the sidelines, but it looks like he is going to be out Monday's game and then again on next week as well, potentially. But I guess it is a good thing that it is at least like active in practice right now.
Yeah, and I think, they haven't put him on IR, which is good, obviously. I think that we all kind of figured that he would be back after the bye, so it's a 2-week thing for fantasy purposes because he would be out that third week anyway. It's always, if you want to look at this optimistically and positively, it's always nice when a stud like this gets hurt when the bye week is happening, so that they have that extra week. So I'm expecting him back week 10. I think Bucky Irving comes back week 10. And then once that happens, it's let's just hope that you can coast and get at least a W in between. Cause I have a ton of Emeka Egbuka, as you guys know. I'm hoping Sterling Shepard has a decent game. I think that the other pass catchers there this week are actually pretty intriguing because it's a great matchup against Detroit, in that environment. And so I think Sterling Shepard would still be my guy over like a Tez Johnson, but even Tez in a deeper format. I mean, I'm starting him in the Kings Classic League this week. So yeah, I think it could be worse. Could be worse.
Okay, George Kittle fully plans to return. So the title is Kittle preps for tight end week, because tight end week is next week. It's week 8.
Tight ends have been good this year, man.
They've been crushing it. I mean, they really have.
Yeah.
And except for one that had quite a bit of draft capital, Mr. Brock Bowers.
I mean, I mean, obviously Kittle was hurt too.
Yeah.
But yeah, tight end. I'm feeling good about the tight end dead zone notion, right? Because a lot of those guys haven't really been stepping up and doing that well. Laporte has been okay, but Kelsey and Andrews and stuff. It's like they've been. I mean, Kelsey's been fine, but I think people are probably not loving what he's been doing. But regardless, yeah, I mean, Kittle this week, to me, you start him. There's 25% plus target share potential. I think the one thing that is just harder is Mac Jones is likely going to play, it sounds like. And so if that's the case, different tendencies, we don't know exactly what that looks like, whereas we have a bigger sample size with Brock Purdy. But yeah, Kittle's arguably the best tight end in football. I mean, like efficiency wise and just what he brings to the table. So you got to start Kittle if you have him.
Yeah. Is Tunga's dead now? Yes.
Yeah. Tungus, I don't think that you can touch. Yeah.
All right. If you could give a few reactions, that'd be helpful. And while you're
asking, and I got to talk. And
I know, but generally you type as you're telling us what you're typing, and like what that is. Okay, I was like workshopping this. I thought this is not AI. This is just me. Jerry had a healthy lamb. That was me. That was
good. That was good.
That was me.
That's
I want all the credit.
Here's my reaction to this is to buy George Pickens. And I say that because I think that there's a sentiment out there that this is, I mean, obviously it's going to hurt Pickens, in fantasy. Like he's not going to be as good of a fantasy asset, but this team has a very narrow target tree, which is why it's so awesome, because the offense itself, and I'm actually going to get to this in a second in today's data as a little teaser, but the offense itself is playing so well and can move the ball so well. And then on top of that, this isn't like an offense that is fine and mediocre with a concentrated target tree. It's an offense that literally just throws the ball to 3 guys. It's Jake Ferguson, George Pickens, and CeeDee Lamb. And of course there's other players, but like those players are going to just see massive work every single week. And so there's still the contingent upside that we just saw with Lamb going down, where George Pickens was a clear wide receiver 1 in fantasy. So I think if you can buy him low, I think it's a reasonable thing to do. For me, CeeDee Lamb is now back in that, I think he's in the Jamar Chase tier too. Like he's just there, right? He's clustered in there with like the JSN types and stuff. He's back to being a top 5 wide receiver. I'm starting him this week. I'm not thinking twice.
Commander Burks, say it with me now. We got Traylon Burks signed to the Commanders practice squad. With that, is he going to save the team? Because you got Scary Terry who's going to be out this week, and then also Debo saying he's going to look to give. He didn't sound like that confident. I was fully expecting him to play, but today
he hasn't practiced in 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's
so
like
I'm
Steve
still
McNair
assuming
treatment.
I'm still assuming he's going. He didn't practice last week either. Even on Friday, Friday's always the day that we care about, and even on Friday he wasn't, or I think Saturday last week, because they were playing on Monday night. But I'm still expecting Debo to go. Maybe he doesn't. If he doesn't, it's anyone's guess. It really is anyone's guess, because they not only will split route shares up, but obviously then there's a split target share, and sometimes it's Luke McCaffrey. Some last week it was Chris Moore. The week before, whenever I trusted Chris Moore as a sleeper, it wasn't Chris Moore. It's a crapshoot. So I don't have a favorite from a secondary option in Washington. The only dude, and I'll talk about him in a second, the only dude that I really would probably be starting if Debo's out is Zach Ertz. Confidently starting would be Zach Ertz.
Okay. Jets, man, they're down bad. Someone on Twitter talked about Garrett. I forget what the reference was, but you're like, who knew that when Garrett Wilson, maybe it was a Breece Hall reference, But like when Garrett Wilson's not involved in the offense, just the whole offense is just bad.
Yeah, I mean, look at the weapons, right? I'll just say that in my reaction. Look at the weapons there, guys. Like, I'm not a Justin Fields apologist by any means. I draft him in fantasy football because when I draft him in fantasy football, he generally scores fantasy points. When he's started since his rookie year, he's averaging like 20 fantasy points per game. So I'm gonna like tout that because he has the cheat code with his rushing. When he starts, he's generally okay. I do think, though, that you have to at least hesitate a little bit this week when they don't have. I mean, Josh Reynolds is his wide receiver 1, and he wasn't even practicing earlier this week. You know, Mason Taylor is probably the guy who projects to see the most volume in this offense through the air. We're talking about a rookie tight end who is good, but I don't think he was an elite prospect. They're probably going to run a lot of work through their running backs and through Breece Hall. And then you got to hope for some rushing stuff, but you know, Andrew Erickson talked about this on Late Round Perspectives this week that dropped like an hour ago. And Erickson talked about how the Panthers' rush defense has been surprisingly good this year. And so there's that we have to worry about. So Justin Fields has sort of slowly gone down my rankings list this week. I'm not super high on him because it's just tough. Like, could he come through with like a 23-point performance because he does a lot on the ground? Of course. There's just a lot of volatility to this play, like more than usual with Justin Fields.
Okay. Today we are waiting to see about Jakobi Meyers' status. So the title is Myers hurt?
Yeah.
You know, just like one analyst famously said on the show that, Brian Robinson wasn't shot.
That's right. Right. Yeah, I think it was you who said that, right?
Yeah, probably. I'll take the bullet for that.
No
So you think Myers is hurt, or do you think that he may have unfollowed the Raiders, followed the Patriots account with all these trade rumors going on?
I think that there's look, I don't want to say that a player is not hurt if they're hurt. But of course, you know, we think about what if this is just simply the trade stuff. And I think that we saw Jack Besh get some more work last week. He had an 80% route share, got a lot of cardio, didn't get a single target in that game. But with Jack Besh getting more work, the Raiders are pathetic offensively. Jakobi Meyers is a good player. I tweeted about this earlier this week, but people seem to think that Meyers is just a slot guy when the last 2 years prior to this year he's playing more in the slot. But the prior 2 seasons, he was like sub 35% slot rate. And that, to be fair, when we say like slot, not slot, a lot of guys will play some in the slot. Like even perimeter players will play like 20% of their snaps and run 20% of their routes out of the slot. It's that when you get over that like 50% mark, that means that they're generally running out of the slot and 11 personnel pretty frequently. And then you get like the Josh Downs, Jaden Reed types where they're over the 70% mark because they're only out there in 11 personnel. And when they're out there, they're in the slot, right? That's what Wan'Dale Robinson used to be like until now he's playing all of the snaps because they don't have any wide receivers. So Jakobi Meyers last year had a better perimeter yards per route run than slot yards per route run. He had a 1.9 yards per route run rate from the outside. I think that he's fine there. He can work in a lot of different places. I don't want him to go to like Buffalo because I think Buffalo needs a field stretcher, like a Rashid Shaheed type. I would love to see Shaheed get to Buffalo. He would work in New England because it gives them more versatility at the line, and they could throw him and Diggs and just kind of rotate them and allow Diggs to play more in the slot where he's been a lot better. Diggs has been good, like when he's been running routes. If he goes to New York to the Giants, I think that would work. That's fine. So there's definitely places for him where I think that his fantasy value would increase a little bit. I'm rooting for the Giants personally because this is more of a selfish thing, but I want Jackson Dart to really thrive and see what he can do. And, I want Stephon Diggs to be able to maintain a high target share because I like Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. He needs to get healthy because this is the week against the Titans. We'll talk about that game later. One more week though for the Ravens. Lamar Jackson expected to return week 8. We can all rejoice.
Yeah, I think you got to buy Zay. Talked about that in the 15 transaction show. He's not the most highest ceiling piece in the world, despite what he did in week 1. I think we've seen that since then. But to me, this is like as someone who did not draft a ton of Zay Flowers this year, I sent a trade out this week. I traded Bam Knight and Devontae Smith for Zay Flowers, for instance, to a semi-needy team. So I'm getting my Zay Flowers exposure now. I think others should try to do that because the defense is playing poorly. I think there could be some pass heavier game scripts than normal. And obviously Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson. So right now would be the time to buy Zay while he's on a bye.
Okay, is Hubbard going to ruin the party? He's going to ruin our Rico party.
100%.
Oh gosh.
To me, like I said this in my rankings and then on the Patreon, like, I don't know. No one knows exactly what the split's going to look like. And I think that the default answer for analysts is like, it's going to be 50-50, which I think is like fair. Right. But if you think about like how that offense was operating before the injury happened, let's just say it was 70-30, because it was like, it started out like 90-10 in Chuba's favor to start the year. And then that was the first game. And then they started using Rico Dowdle a little bit more. And it was like, let's say 70-30. I think like I had Rico ranked ahead of Chuba in my rest of season rankings this week, only because there was a chance that Chuba wouldn't play this week. And if that was the case, then you had more value in Rico rest of season. I'm of the belief, I think deep down, if you want like a truth serum take from me, I think Chuba probably maybe not this week, but gets more work than Rico Dowdle rest of season if both of them are healthy. But I think it's like a 55-45 type situation.
Yeah.
After
like
this week's probably a little bit different because they'll ease Chuba back in.
Well, and this, I mean, just give you a little bit of flowers. You talked about how their schedule was good for the first part of the season. But if you either A, followed that news and traded away Hubbard, or B, avoided him like I did, at least if you don't have Rico, Chuba Hubbard is not killing you, which is good. You know.
Yeah, I also see people like Matt in chat is saying that Chuba was paid by the Panthers. Like, Rico Dowdle had a really small contract that he signed. Like, this isn't, they're going to do whatever they need to do to win football games. And a football team that pays a running, like when we say a very, like, try to articulate this. The running back position does not get paid that much money. And so, yes, we can say this player got paid X number of dollars, but that X number of dollars at running back is not that much greater than a baseline number of dollars because running backs don't get paid that much money, right? It's like saying that a worker at McDonald's is making $12 an hour, which probably is way too high for what they would be making, unfortunately. You know, they're making $12 an hour versus someone who's making, $9 an hour. And you're saying, well, this $12 an hour person is being paid a lot more because it is a lot more. It's 33% more, right, than that other person, but it's still on a lower dollar value. And it's similar with the running back position. Unfortunately, we all want everyone to get paid is what I'm saying. But just from like that context, I don't care that much about how much these guys are getting paid. I think that they're just going to play the best player, and Chuba's good. Like, let's not forget that Chuba is also good. They're both good players. And that's why I think it's likely going to go back to how they evaluated things at the beginning of the season. And Chuba's going to get his fair shot, I think, still.
Yeah. Matt's saying they work who they paid. My thing is they've won 2 games in a row with Rico as a starter. They're not just going to ignore that. Coaches want to win. They can't
ignore that. Do you know if they ignore, not only that, if you want to talk about like the outside pressure or like the, a differing pressure than just football, the outside pressure would be if they lose this week and they don't use more Rico Dowdle, he's going to get destroyed. Like there's that too. So
they got the Jets this week, but they also they're 3-3, which, I mean, if you would have said, hey, could you be 3-3 to start, they would take it, considering the past few years of that franchise. And they still have the Saints twice. They could make a run, potentially, or at least not get the coach fired.
I think look, this is a run first team. They have a decent offensive line. They're going to use both players and they can both be valuable in fantasy, but not RB1 valuable. Like, it's not, and that was never going to happen in my opinion for Chuba anyway, unless an injury happened. And Rico, went nuts partially because of the matchups that we saw, but I'm just not like, I think that they're still going to use Chuba to a decent degree. You know, I don't think this is going to be Rico's backfield. It might be this week, like I said, he's coming back from that injury, but long term, I'll say 55-45 in favor of Chuba.
All right. Concussions are the absolute worst. Anytime you have brain injuries, it sucks.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. The side effect of that is that your fantasy teams also struggle because you've got Marvin Harrison Jr. questionable. I don't think when someone gets a concussion, I'm just automatically in the frame of mind this in 2025 they're not going to play the following week.
Yeah, I think Edwin Porteros did a study a couple years ago.
I love it when you say his name. I
gotta give him. You know, he wants me to say it that way. I think he did a study a couple years ago about wide receivers. The first week they come back from concussions, they do have a dip in performance that first week back, and it could be lack of reps. It could be because they're just not as nuanced and able to run their routes as well, or what have you. But yeah.
Nate said, I hope the missing S is a brain injury joke. No, that was just.
Oh, you spelled concussion wrong?
I just missed an S. I asked the B with concussions. But we also have now that Josh Downs is out this week. A.D. Mitchell will be back, but Josh Downs is out with a concussion this week.
Yeah, so we get an uptick. I said Alec Pierce in the on the sleeper show. I think that's the only one that you can really trust as like a sleeper. Just because we don't know what I think like Anthony Gold, who I remember prospecting when he came out, like he would be potentially their slot guy, but I think Alec Pierce is the safest bet.
Okay. And joke's on you. And then I added this one from Trey that I saw in the chat. Fanning the Flames. Njoku officially out this week.
Yeah, the problem here is there's bad weather with this Cleveland-Miami game. So good for the defenses. I think Fannin can still be okay because there's going to be lower A-dot throws, but I'm going to be really, like when I adjust the rankings a little bit more, I'm going to be lower on Jerry Jeudy, lower on Jalen Waddle. I think the total in that game has already fallen 3 points. So it's a game we fortunately a lot of us are streaming the Browns defense, which I think is a good, I think you could stream Miami at this point too.
Yeah, shout out to Kevin Roth, a great guy. Follow him for weather news. He's generally like he'll be the one to tell you, hey, it's okay to freak out, or like, hey, this is not going to really affect things. All right, quitting fantasy. JJ, you said that you would quit fantasy, football altogether, if this one rumor took place. You want to tell people what that rumor was?
Yeah, there's a rumor that the Dolphins are going to trade Devon Achane to Seattle. Now, I said that as a joke, obviously, but I also would assume that if they move Achane to Seattle, they're going to move Kenneth Walker. That's my guess. So there would be a rotation of sorts going on there. But I swear, if we have a three-headed backfield of Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, and Devon Achane, not only that, Devon Achane going to the team, I mean, maybe this is why they want to do it, because they aren't using their running backs as receivers. But to a team that has 16 total targets this year, their backfield does, is not great. That's not what I want. I want, like, if you have Devon Achane, you want him to stay put with Mike McDaniel. You don't want Mike McDaniel fired. You want Tua Tagovailoa starting because they peppered him with targets and it's a good environment for him. So keep Devon Achane where he is. I don't need a trade, please.
Today's data.
All right. Looks like we got some touchdowns per game charts going on here.
Yeah.
JJ.
Yeah. Real quick with with today's data. I was just curious to see which teams have improved and not improved most year over year within touchdowns per game. No surprise, Dallas, one of the teams that was at the top of the list for my projections with the little formula I'd built over the summer for touchdowns per game. Dallas had 1.71 last year. They're at 3.33 this year. So that difference is 1.63 touchdowns per game. They're the biggest improvement. One team that I didn't have super high was Indianapolis, and they are number 2 on the list in improvement. Then it's New England, Pittsburgh, the Giants, the Bears, which is good to see, which is not surprising. Seattle, Kansas City, Miami, because of what they did. Miami's honestly doing what they did with Tua last year. You know, like last year's numbers were just driven down by when Tua was hurt. And then the Rams round out the top 10. And this includes last night's game. So Pittsburgh up 0.77 touchdowns per game. On the flip side, at the very bottom of the list, with last night's game included, is Cincinnati.
That's crazy.
They're down 1.46 touchdowns per game. Tennessee is second worst, minus 1.11, which is not great because they weren't that great last year. Tennessee has 0.83 touchdowns per game right now.
Is that good?
I'm pretty sure. I don't know if we've ever seen less than a touchdown per game by a team.
But a new coach this week. Can't be worse.
I really should have looked that up to see if we've had. I'll do that while I'm talking here. Baltimore down almost a touchdown year over year, which isn't that surprising because of the Lamar Jackson stuff. New Orleans is actually down by minus 0.6 touchdowns per game. San Francisco, because of the injuries, not surprising, minus 0.5. Tampa Bay, minus 0.5. So there is some regression despite Baker Mayfield playing out of his mind. Yeah. The Jets, minus 0.5. The Eagles, minus 0.5 year over year. And the Chargers. This goes back to what I talked about in the 10 Trends episode. I think people have this belief that the Chargers are like playing out of their minds offensively, but they're not. They haven't been that great offensively this year.
Yeah, I like that. A little note about the anchoring bias, because it is true. People.
Yeah, I think a lot. If you were to just ask, 100 random fantasy players, is the Chargers offense top or bottom half in the league in touchdowns per game? What percent of the 100 do you think would say top half?
98.
Yeah, I think it'd be high. By the way, the worst team since 2011 in touchdowns per game, the 2011 Los Angeles Rams, St. Louis Rams, when they had Steve Spagnuolo and Josh McDaniels.
Oh.
They won 2 games that year. They averaged 1 touchdown per game. So right now, Tennessee is pacing to be the worst offense of the last 15 plus years.
Nice. And added to that, we just got word. I just received an alert 2 minutes ago. Adam Schefter reporting Calvin Ridley is out this week.
Yeah, no surprise. Someone asked, I could have mentioned Alec Iamaner on the Sleeper Show. I just didn't because it's still a volatile play, and the Tennessee offense is averaging 0.83 touchdowns per game.
It might be Van Jefferson if he's healthy.
It could be. That's the thing. There's just a lot going on there that I didn't want to force the issue. I'm trying to be better about not just throwing plays out there to throw plays out there, which will hopefully make it a more efficient and quality show each week.
The late round main event.
All right, these are players that you like more than consensus this week, starting with Grandma Goff.
Grandma Goff. I don't have strong takes at quarterback and wide receiver this week, but at quarterback, I have Goff 1 spot ahead of consensus, but he's also in a tier ahead. I have him in a tier that's higher than where people have him ranked, so I'm going to shout him out. He's in Detroit. They have a 29-point implied team total. They're facing the Bucs. That's the 11th best matchup by adjusted points allowed for quarterbacks. The one concern I have, also, by the way, I get so frustrated because every week there's a Thursday night guy. I was 5 spots ahead with Aaron Rodgers this week, and I would have called him out on the show, and I couldn't.
And you had Flacco as a streamer.
Yeah, I had Flacco as a deep. I wasn't as confident in Flacco, but the Rodgers stuff to me was a very clear play. I talked about the pressure rate stuff and how he wasn't a clean pocket, so I can't call him out here because he obviously already played, but I would have called him out. Just remember that. But yeah, Goff, I'm a little bit concerned. I have a pace score that I put together every week that I share with people in the Discord in a matchup chart that I post each week. And the pace score in this game is low. So there's these are slower offenses. That's a little bit concerning, but the team total, the location, the environment, it's all good for Jared Goff.
Okay, let's look at running back where you've got poster boy, cover boy, Rachaad White.
Yeah, I'm just why is he being ranked where he's being ranked? That's really what this comes down to. What more does he have to do, right?
Yeah.
I think of course he can flop, but I think logically I have him at RB11, consensus RB18. So this is a pretty big gap. But he's been a top 10 back in back-to-back weeks. He scored 23 and 18 PPR points. The usage is there, 78% running back rush share per game, about a 13% target share per game. He's been a bell cow for Tampa Bay. And also there's a lack of weapons, right? Mike Evans is hopefully coming back, but you have no Emeka Egbuka, you have no Chris Godwin. Looks will get funneled to the running backs, and there's a 100% target share pie. if guys downfield aren't getting open, that's the dump off option is Rachaad White. And Detroit is actually 9th in the league in adjusted target share allowed to running backs. So I like Rachaad White this week. I think people are, I don't know. I mean, like there are some good running back options. So maybe that's why I can't imagine playing like, DeAndre Swift over him, even though I like Swift a lot. The environment in this game is just better. And he's seeing just as good, if not better, peripherals than Swift is. So to me, it's like, all right, better game environment. I think Rachaad White is probably just as good of, maybe not quite as good of a running back, but I don't know, like probably comparable enough. I'm just going to go with the environment as the tiebreaker there.
Okay. Let's get to wide receiver. You got Cortland Sutton up there, and this isn't sexy enough for me, JJ.
I know. I had Michael Pittman in here, but then people adjusted their rankings because of like the Josh Downs stuff. And then I realized, I'm at market with Michael Pittman. So I had to adjust, throwing out Cortland Sutton. I'm 2 spots ahead of consensus, so it's not much. I'm pretty chalky at wide receiver this week. He gets the 6th best matchup for wide receivers by adjusted points allowed. Denver has a top 5 pressure rate matchup this week. So every week, part of that matchup sheet that I send to Discord members is a pressure rate matchup where I look at pressure rate allowed versus pressure rate generated. And that was one of the reasons why I liked Aaron Rodgers last night, is because it was 2nd best among all quarterbacks in week 7. This is a top 5 one for Denver. So Bo Nix should have some time to let plays develop. Cortland Sutton has seen inconsistent target shares, but obviously he has some touchdown upside. But he's also, if you're a pattern person, every other week he has a good target share, and this is a week where he would have a good target share. So maybe this is the week that he goes off.
And for tight end, you said we talk about this guy later, and we are now. It's Zach Ertz.
Game environment is amazing. What's the game total? What's the total of this game now? Like
it is the 2nd highest team total with 53.5. No. That's not right. It's 54.5.
Yeah,
with
that's
the highest team total.
Yeah, highest of the week. Yeah. And so the game environment's awesome. You have banged up wide receivers. The Cowboys are worse against wide receivers and running backs, but they're still, a top half opponent for tight ends by adjusted points allowed. So I've Ertz at tight end 10 this week when consensus has him at tight end 14.
Okay. Let's get to the bold predictions, starting with the Giants.
Yeah, first one, that I think the Giants do the opposite of what they did last week offensively. So last week I talked about Justin Fields S-ing the B.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance. Now I completely flopped in my other bold prediction last week with Jawan Jennings, but I also didn't know Jawan Jennings had 14 broken ribs and just absurd. Like he's just completely depleted, and I had no idea that it was that bad. Anyway. Yeah. I think the Giants could have a tough time against Denver. Last week they faced a pressure on a season low 26.5% of their dropbacks. Philly's defense played really bad. It was similar to like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was worse last night, but Philadelphia's defense did not play good a couple weeks ago on Thursday night. The last time we saw them last week, not a couple weeks ago, but last week. Denver has a top 3 pressure rate in all of football, so they should be able to get to the quarterback. And the Broncos I said this with Justin Fields last week, the Broncos have been good against mobile quarterbacks, and that worries me a little bit with Jackson Dart. So I think there's a chance that we see the Giants this week S the B offensively.
There you go. And the next one, I was a little bit surprised when I saw your rankings, because I'm like, as someone who has a team with both Xavier Worthy and Rice on there, I'm just assuming that I'm replacing one with the other. But you had a pretty decent ranking for Xavier Worthy this week as well.
Yeah, I like both of them. Like, I think Rashee Rice can have a great game, but I try to think about, and I kind of talked about this earlier at the top of the show with like market sentiment and the way that like the general consensus just like thinks and vibes, because that to me, the psychological component can really, you can find an edge in fantasy football and win just by looking at what consensus is saying, kind of doing the opposite of that. Or like, not even just like what they're saying, but the logic behind what they're saying. Right. And to me, this bold prediction is that Xavier Worthy shines in this game and makes everyone think that Rashee Rice is actually going to help Xavier Worthy. But I think there's a chance he shines in this game because the matchup is really strong for him, right? Like, I'm aggressive with Rashee Rice in my rankings. You should be playing him. This is not an anti-Rice take, but Vegas is a bottom 5 team in the league and adjusted slot target share allowed. So they're worse against perimeter players, which I think with Rashee Rice back, we'll see Xavier Worthy play more on the outside. They're a top 10 team in deep ball completion rate allowed. And the Chiefs had the best pressure rate matchup that I was just talking about earlier in the league this week, which means Patrick Mahomes is going to have time to let plays develop, not just get it out to Rashee Rice on, like we saw with Jamar Chase last night. And if he has time for plays to develop, we might see Xavier Worthy down the field a little bit more. So if we get a big play from Worthy, maybe 2, then I think that's going to be the narrative, is that Rashee Rice actually helps him. But it could just be that this is a matchup based thing. Like, this is what I'm, that's how I try to think about this stuff, is that this is a singular game, a singular matchup, and a lot of different things can happen in that singular matchup. We shouldn't just attribute that as how it's going to go the rest of the season.
Favorite comment so far today in the chat is Thomas talking about your Juwan Jennings. He said, "Not me probing my chest and counting how many ribs I have."
I think we only have like 14 ribs anyway, but they're all broken for Juwan Jennings. I have no idea how many ribs we have.
I think you guys have 13 ribs. That's gonna be my answer. That's like, are you smarter than a 4th grader?
Yeah, I mean, I just Googled it. A typical human has 24 ribs.
Oh, we're way off.
I mean, how would they have 13 though? Wouldn't it need to be an even number? You don't have one just like chilling on the bottom, do you?
I need to figure out the I love like eating ribs, but I need to obviously
to go to the doctor. Do I need to?
I need to do more research. I do have one extra vertebrae.
Oh, maybe you have an extra rib.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. Okay. Let's get to the look ahead waiver wire.
All right. I'll go through this pretty quick. Jack Besh, because of the Jacoby Myers stuff, but also he saw an 80% route share last week. Luther Burden saw a little bit of an uptick last week. Little bit. It's gradually happening. He's been good. And Olamide Zaccheaus was not good in that game. Visually. I didn't look at the data, but watching that game, I just think Burden is a better player than Olamide Zaccheaus. And I think as the season goes on, we're going to see more and more Luther Burden. Michael Penix as an ad, because next week they get Miami. Joe Flacco as an ad because of what he did on Thursday night. But also, I talked about this on 15 transactions. He has a good rest of season schedule. Didn't I talk about Flacco on 15, or did I remove that one?
You talked about Flacco, I think, on the Sleeper show.
I did, but I think I talked about him on 15. Maybe I didn't. If I didn't, I had him, and then I would have replaced him or something. Pretty sure I did, though.
I think you did talk about him on the transaction show because you like his schedule going forward.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I always, it's so bizarre that I can't remember, but yes, I did. I talked about, he was an ad this week. Add Joe Flacco right before adding the Cleveland Browns defense. Because sometimes I have 17 transactions, or I write a transaction and then something happens and I replace it and stuff like that. So I couldn't remember for sure. So Joe Flacco's an ad. Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson for obvious reasons. Although, you're probably only get 1 week after this week with them. Jalen Coker, we'll see what happens with Carolina and Coker, but I still think that he's a good ad. I think my favorite sneaky ad is Pat Bryant, who I talked about on the Sleeper show this week, where he's seeing more and more work. He has a good slot matchup this week. He's playing more in the slot. But again, a rookie wide receiver where we want to be ahead of them getting, like Jack Besh. We want to be ahead with them getting more and more work, because these are the kinds of archetype of players that end up doing well during the second half of the season. And this is a decent enough offense where he could carve out a role. I don't think Troy Franklin has shown us that he's a stud, or Marvin Mims. And Pat Bryant was a decent prospect. So I think he's a really, in deeper leagues, I think he's a really fun stash. Right now, DeAndre Swift is questionable for the weekend. So look at that backfield with Kyle Monangai and Roshan Johnson. Tajay Spears, I think, is still way undervalued based on how bad that Tennessee offense is and the fact that they're going to see a lot of negative game scripts. Mason Taylor gets Cincinnati next week. We just saw what happened with that Bengals defense against the Steelers tight ends. Aronde Gadsden, still only a 2% rostership at this moment, even though He ran like 77% of their routes last week. And that was with Will Dissly back. And then there wasn't really an obvious streamer. I'm going to have to wait and see kind of what happens this weekend. Maybe there's a quarterback injury, knock on wood, or something like that. But right now, Indianapolis, they're like 50% rostered. They get the Titans next week. So that would be the easier stash at defense. A lot of anti-Titan sentiment on this show.
I get it. Listen,
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, I'm in the camp of I want Cam Ward to flash some just signs that he will be okay. Like,
Yeah.
just
I don't know.
just give me a pulse that this
I don't-
coaching staff hasn't helped to ruin this kid.
If you strictly go by data, and usually like the data is in the right direction with this kind of stuff. It's not guaranteed, but it's in the right direction. And where he's at right now,
it's not good.
We don't see players work out at where he's at. Jackson Dart, on the other hand,
He looks good.
Looks good.
All right. Let's get to the quad box. Thomas asked earlier, what's the purpose of the quad box? He's catching this live and the podcast doesn't make it clear. The purpose is, hey, we're just looking at 4 games that we're looking forward to watching this weekend. Free shout out to YouTube TV for allowing the multi-view where you can watch 4 games at one time.
We're really just setting this up
Sunday
for a
ticket.
YouTube sponsor.
100%.
Yeah.
Or like anybody else, like I'll take a Tubi sponsor, if they want them. Your show.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
Okay. But I mean, do you want to go first?
I mean, I think that I'll go chalk. Commanders,
Yeah.
Cowboys first. I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll type it in.
Okay. You just copy and paste if you wanted to.
Yeah, I could have done that, but I did that.
Okay.
Commanders. I put.
Listen, we've got 2 Monday Night Football games, but right now I'm focused on one game. No,
you're not doing this. You're not being a homer. You're not being a homer.
It's not a homer.
Oh, this is you think people care that much about Mike Vrabel? Do you think people care that much about
I think
Mike
it's just a good
no one cares, Kitchen.
There's so much drama. You don't appreciate this is I don't want to stereotype all the analytical guys out there, but this is the problem with you guys where you don't take into consideration the emotional aspect of things.
No one.
Titans just fired their coach. They're playing against their ex-coach.
Yeah.
The hot boyfriend across the sidelines.
Yeah.
You got Drake May throwing to whoever, but he's a guy that I have a lot of exposure to. And just give me a little bit of hope. But I want the Patriots to put up a ton of points. You got Travion Henderson.
Okay, but at the very least, this is a bad draft selection because you could have taken them 4th.
I'm letting you pick whoever you want. I don't want to take one of your picks.
All right, fine.
This is a free square for me.
I'm just saying, if we were to poll people, if they're interested in the Mike Vrabel storyline, 95% of people would say no. If you were to say, would you rather watch the Patriots Titans or the Buccaneers Lions to a group of people playing fantasy football?
Yeah.
What percent do you think would say Buccaneers Lions? 97?
Right. I'm sorry. I thought this was the quad box where we picked out games that we wanted to watch. So when I pull up the multi-view on Sunday, I'm not going to say, well, I can't watch the Titans and Pats because only 2% of us want to watch this game.
I'm going Bucks Lions next.
Where to get your ideas? Monday Night Football game.
This is the easiest week ever for this, and you're taking Patriots Titans.
I want. You know what? Just for that, JJ.
Yeah, here we go.
You know what I'm going to do? You know what game I really want to watch? What game I'm excited about?
Don't do it.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. Seahawks versus the Texans.
Why? Oh, because you want me to hate life.
Yeah.
Before bed.
Yeah. It's the latest game on Monday night.
Oh.
It's a 10 p.m. Eastern game. And matchups are going to be won or lost based on this game right here. Let me have the late night hammer.
You can have the late night hammer, but I'm going to hate my life on Monday because I'm not going to go to bed until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning because I have to work after the games are over. So
Well,
you're kind of just like digging a hole for yourself with your boss here, buddy.
It's because my boss just berated my personal Titans and Pats pick.
Yeah. Well,
okay. If I didn't like the Patriots and Titans, I honestly, I'd probably look at. I'm trying to figure out where
there's two. I think there's two that you can go with outside of that one.
Okay. I mean, Commanders, you've got the two that really I'm interested in. I kind of want, it's not going to be a great game, but I kind of want the Raiders at Chiefs just so I can see what Rice does. But who are the ones you were thinking of? Eagles and Vikings?
I think Colts Chargers is going to be interesting, and then I think Rams Jags in London.
I can't get down with London games. They never go off.
This one will.
Take the over.
There's my analysis.
This one will.
This game in London. This one will go off.
Okay, I will not watch that Dolphins Browns game. How about
Colts
that?
Chargers is a good game.
Yeah, it is. There's some ugly games though. Like the Dolphins and Browns, Panthers and Jets, Packers and Cardinals. There's some ugly games.
Okay. So you put this in before all lines shifted because I was like, why would the Dolphins Browns be ahead of the Broncos Giants from a game total perspective?
Yeah. All right, JJ, do you have any final thoughts?
I don't. Go listen to the content if you missed any of it this week. I guess I do have final thoughts if I'm going to say that. Go listen to the content if you missed it. The sleeper show is still very valid. Drop the mailbag. Had a great conversation with Andrew Erickson on late round perspectives. Check that out. But yeah, I appreciate everyone for listening. I don't know. I know that I say it every show, but like I genuinely mean it. Like the appreciation for people to like sit and put their earbuds in or listen in the car or whatever it may be to me talk about fantasy football, largely me, because it's me and you or me and a guest on perspectives, but otherwise it's just me. Yeah. And I genuinely appreciate that support. Doesn't get lost on me.
Redacted said the saddest, this one will of all time.
Yeah. This one's going to go over, guys.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback that off of that and say my kids, they get in the car and it's JJ over the stereo. So it's like they're almost like a little sick of JJ right now, but they understand, hey, this is dad's boss.
That's right. You gotta listen. You gotta listen to me.
And so a belated happy National Bosses Day to my boss who puts out a ton of content. JJ, we appreciate you. We appreciate everyone listening, watching, commenting on all of our stuff, our patrons, those people that are with us, the OGs, everyone, the people that are going to be stealing a Declaration of Independence eventually. We love you all. We appreciate you all. And shout out to our sponsor, DraftKings. We'll be back next week for the Week 8 Late Round Fantasy Football Show. We'll see you next time here on the Late Round Fantasy Football Show, sponsored by DraftKings.